Welcome to the Dollars and Cents podcast with Wes the Economist and Jonathan the Conspiracy Theorist. We're reporting to you live from the Wave Beach Realty Studios in North Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Give us a call today at 843-957-3872. All right, guys, welcome back into the Dollars and Cents podcast with Wes the Economist. I am Jonathan the Conspiracy Theorist, and today we're going to jump right into it and talk about socialism / communism / why that's better than capitalism.
Oh, it's the best thing in the world, man. Have you ever read the Communist Manifesto?
I haven't, but I should.
Yeah, you should.
Have you read it?
I probably haven't read it all the way through, but on paper it looks really good. I mean, if you read it on paper, it looks.
Yeah.
This is great.
Yeah.
It's like, as a member of society, you give what you can to society, and you only take back what you need.
Seems fair.
Seems fair, right?
On paper.
On paper, yeah. I mean, literally, people ask me, have you ever read it? Well, yeah, I've gone through it. Sounds really good. But then match that with reality. How many people do you know? And you're going to know some, but how many do you know that will give everything they can to a group and only take back what they need?
It's very rare.
Very rare.
Very rare. Because
even if it's 30% of the population.
Yeah.
So you got 70%. I mean, this was tried. Was it the Pilgrims? One of the first. It wasn't Jamestown.
One of the first colonies.
I think it was Plymouth. I think it was the Pilgrims at Plymouth Rock. Everybody was given the same amount of land. Everybody was given the same amount of stuff. And the first year, you were supposed to take care of your land, give it to the community. And they had so many people who wouldn't get up and do anything that they actually took it all back and redistributed it to people who were actually doing the work. Yeah. So I mean, this stuff's been tried for centuries.
Was that socialism or communism? That's socialism.
Well. So as you do, okay, I'm going to define this in economic terms. So I can't speak to the political terms because they keep changing. Yeah. Democratic socialism. I'm going to vote to take somebody else's stuff away. I don't quite understand that mentality. So politically, we'll have to get somebody out here to talk about it. But from a economic point of view, we look at it as resources. Again, economics is we study why people use the resources in the way they do in times of scarcity. So in a completely free economy, everybody has complete control of their own resources, and they can buy and sell and do what they want with it, with only government protecting contract law, and making sure no private property is taken. Mm-hmm. So in other words, they're policing to make sure nobody's stealing stuff.
Yeah.
On the other side of that, in economics, I call it command system, to stay away from the political jargon. Command system means there's a central entity that owns our resources and decides how to use those resources. So now put that into today's world. Capitalism is a free market, but capitalism does not exist anywhere on the planet. And last I looked, we were number 25 in the world in a free market, and we were like in the 70 percentile. There is no 90 percentile people anymore. Used to be Hong Kong, Singapore, New Zealand, all were above 90%. They've all fallen below it. And when I say 90%, in other words, looking at all these factors, how free is that economy? How much are people allowed to use their resources the way they want to? And we have none above 90% anymore. And the United States is dropping fast. So basically translate that into everyday words is how much does that central entity, and everybody at this point, that means government, how much does government control private property? So that's when you start getting into this look at this sliding scale of how free a market is versus how much a command market it is. Well, as you move towards command market, you're moving into socialism. As the government makes more and more decisions on how resources are being used, then you have more and more people turning their private property rights over to the government. So the end result of socialism is communism. When the communism would be the point that we're in a complete command system where the government controls our resources, i.e. Cuba and North Korea. So what we're seeing happening in the United States is we've adopted this term of democratic socialism, which again, democracy means you're voting. Socialism means you're giving control of property to the government. So we're basically voting
to lose rights.
So it makes no sense for us. There's no such thing as a democratic socialist.
Right.
They can call themselves all they want, but that's not the true meaning of the words. It's an oxymoron.
Yeah, yeah.
From an economic point of view, and that's what's going on in New York City with this guy running for mayor. Everybody thinks it sounds good. He wants to put rent control on everything, on all the housing. Well, if you look at rent control in Manhattan, on the island, I guess, in that whole area, there was more people living there before rent control than after.
Yeah.
And people say, well, that doesn't make sense. Well, it does when you understand economics. So if you don't understand economics, Econ Sense, my other podcast, haven't posted anything new, but there's tons of stuff that they go look at, and you can start to understand how economics works, how it works, because it usually goes against conventional wisdom. We've talked many times about the minimum wage. The minimum wage is the worst thing you can do for poor and unskilled workers. But the concept is, we're helping unskilled workers. No, you're not. You're making sure they don't have a job. That's what you're doing. Yeah. Same thing with these policies in New York City, which he's talking about moving, I think, $30 an hour minimum wage. That's just going to put more people on the streets. Yeah. Because every time you raise minimum wage, you're raising all labor rates. When labor rates go up, in economics we have land, labor, capital, entrepreneurability. When labor, which is one of the main resources used to make products, goes up, all prices of everything else goes up. And therefore, those people who were on minimum wage to begin with, if they get to keep their job, end up right back where they were a few years down the road because all the prices have gone up. Inflation has happened.
Well, also, when you increase, if you force increase the minimum pay, wouldn't the amount of employees also drop to offset that?
Yeah, well, that's the shit.
You would just pay the most skilled employees.
Exactly.
And then the unskilled ones lose either way.
Exactly. So you kick out the ones you're trying to help in the beginning, and then the ones who do get to keep it are no better off than they were afterwards because the prices have gone up.
Right.
So you actually end up causing more poverty by raising minimum wage. Now, I know you're yelling at your screen or yelling at Spotify right now, but do the research. It's very simple, basic economics, but you've got to go look at the stuff to figure it out.
Right.
And that's just one thing he's trying to do.
When life gets unpredictable, turn to a partner you can trust. At Bobby Clary State Farm, we've got you covered. Whether it's home, auto, or life insurance, we're dedicated to providing personalized coverage that fits your needs. With our friendly and knowledgeable team, navigating your insurance options have never been easier. Visit bobbyclary.com or call 843-438-6000. Bobby Clary State Farm, here to help life go right.
Eisenhower Dental, located at 107 Waccamaw Medical Park Drive in Conway, a place where you can find all your dental services, including general dentistry, cosmetic, restorative, and pediatric dentistry. Reach out to them today at their website, eisenhowerdental.com, or call them at 843-234-3110, 843-234-3110, and tell them Wes the Economist sent you.
Diane over there? Wes needed a little water break. But no, that makes sense. I obviously think what he's doing over there is horrible. And I don't know, when is that actual race set? I mean, is Adam still running? Eric Adams still running?
He's independent, is a Republican.
He's going to run as independent? Or was he already independent?
Mm-hmm. What was the mayor's name? The governor's name? Cuomo. He's running as independent.
That's right.
And then you've got... there's two independents, the Democratic guy we're talking about, and then Republican.
Yeah. So I know he was also talking about the crazy one that's running, making grocery stores like owned by the government. So let's say what happens. I know all this leads towards communism, but let's just talk about just grocery stores for a second. If you make grocery stores owned by the government and they control pricing and the supply of food for the city, what's the downside of that? Where other than cheaper groceries.
The problem is it's not cheaper groceries. Somebody's got to bear the price of whatever groceries are running. So to make this into what he wants, the city's going to have to buy or rent, one or the other, that resource of, we call it capital because it's man-made items. So they're going to have to pay for that. Then they got to pay for the produce and for the food and all coming in. And then they got to pay the labor cost. There's all this put together. All this is going to end up with your groceries needing to cost X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. Well, they're going to make sure that's too expensive, so they're going to make sure it's less than that. Well, where does that extra come from then? Taxpayers. Or you end up not getting enough groceries. And this is what happened in Russia. In Soviet Union, you always had empty shelves because it doesn't work. Coordination issues abound, and when there's no incentive to make things work, because if you're working for the New York City and you're in this project they're trying to do, you're going to be given initiatives that you've got to meet to keep your job.
Yeah.
But what do? You meet those initiatives. So if you have a shortage of eggs, but there's not an incentive for you to do anything about it, there's going to be a shortage of eggs.
Right.
If you got way too many paper towels, a surplus on the shelves, there's no incentive to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
So you end up with a very big coordination problem. It just doesn't work. In fact, St. Louis has a form of this already. Did you see the videos on that? So when this happened, they went out to St. Louis, and there were grocery stores that St. Louis didn't own, but they subsidized, and they were always empty. And it's just how things happen. Again, without going into too deep of economics, because there's no incentive, and there's no initiative, you end up with shortages and surpluses all over the place.
Yeah.
And there's nothing there to correct it. And if you're going to keep the price low, there's always going to be shortages, because there's always going to be people who want it, and there's not going to be people willing to supply it.
Right. Yeah, makes sense. It makes sense. So what so is there anywhere in the world right now that's currently communist that is actually functioning?
No. Mm-mm. And that's the thing, when you talk to somebody who's saying that we need to try this, they'll always say it was done wrong in Soviet Union. They're doing it wrong in Cuba. They're doing it wrong in North Korea. Well, what are they doing wrong? Well, they just don't understand how to make things work. No, the problem is you don't understand economics. Yeah. One of my favorite memes is somebody with a megaphone yelling to the crowd, "What do we want?" And the crowd goes, "Free stuff." And they say, "What don't we understand? Economics." People just don't understand economics. The reason I wrote Econ Sense, which, by the way, I'm talking to a publisher here in about a month.
Oh, nice.
I'd love to get that actually published.
Yeah.
It's going to be about a 50-page book on basic economics that people can actually start to understand how economics work.
Right.
Instead of having to go through the math and everything else. And from there, you can jump into Thomas Sowell's Basic Economics, which is a lot more reading. It's about 500 pages.
Yeah.
But it's economics explained with no math and no graphs. Just everyday examples. And it really opens your mind up to what really goes on behind the scenes, because these grocery stores they're talking about, they won't work. It's been tried over and over again. And already New York's in trouble with all its taxes and all. By doing this, it's just going to cause more problems.
Yeah.
But it sounds good.
Yeah.
And the people who are voting, low information voters, as Rush called them, they just don't understand how things work. So, I want cheap groceries. Sounds good.
I just don't think he'd get any of this stuff passed, even if he gets in and wins with these voters, even if the voters get him in. Like, how are you going to get all this done?
It depends on the people who run the city, because he has no power to do all this on his own.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I just can't imagine anybody that actually lives there or have the power going to let him slide, because they probably are smarter.
Yeah, I mean, it can never happen anywhere in the United States, right?
Well, we've said that about other things in the United States.
No,
right?
we have example of socialist tendencies in any part of the United States at this point.
I would say, in a few. Yeah.
California comes to mind immediately.
I mean,
because we were just talking about homeless people and all. Was that on this one or last one?
Yeah, we were talking on the last one, but I mean, California
they have been walking down this socialist path now for about 2 decades at least, and it's left them where they're at.
Yeah, it's bad over there.
It's really bad.
Well, I mean, I'm hearing this from Californians, like on podcasts that are liberal.
Yeah,
liberal podcasts.
I've heard actors talking about how bad LA is.
Yeah,
and how things, but a lot of them can't connect. It's the government that's causing this.
Right.
It's like the fires. We've already stopped talking about the fires and the water not being in the fire hydrants. Yeah. I mean, we've forgotten all about that. And now people are trying to rebuild, and they can't rebuild because the government won't give them permits and all too quickly. It's taking, it'll take them years and years to rebuild just a small house.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a complete mess. And then that he's actually doing a soft. I think that's why he's going on a lot of podcasts, old Newsom, because I think he's really making a gear towards a presidential run. I would be willing to venture if he runs, though, you'll see the most red California voters than you've ever seen, because I would imagine a lot of them see what he's done and are like, there's no way we could vote for this guy.
Yeah.
It's
the ones that are left, because that's the other problem. Once this stuff starts happening, everybody starts exiting.
Right.
That has common sense.
Yeah, that's true.
Not everybody, because I know some people, maybe it was you, and I've had another friend who said, the other economist at work, he's got a good friend who lives out somewhere near OC, I believe. And he just loves it there and don't want to leave, but he complains all the time about taxes and how things are going.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't seem like California's getting any better. They're fleeing that state. Yeah. I mean, same thing happened in New York and New Jersey. I see that every day.
That stack of papers on your thing showing people coming down.
Yeah. Come on down. All those common sense ones, come on down.
Yeah, common sense ones. The rest of you can stay.
Yeah, the rest of you can stay and love
What's that? I met two people from Long Island yesterday. I know there's a lot of people from that part, and I get that you think you're conservative. I understand that. But how do I say this nicely? You need to learn some more about economics.
Yeah. Yeah, and most of the stuff's pretty simple. I mean, you can get deep into economics, obviously, but the basics of it. But the basics alone should tell you why socialism and everything.
There's one friend of mine here that's from New York, and they are constantly they are conservative, but they constantly say stuff, and then they're telling me like, well, the county needs to do something about this. They need to pass an ordinance and make this. Okay, this is what's wrong in New York. It starts locally, and once locally you run out of resources, it has to go to the county, and then the county has to go to the state, and the state has to. I mean, it's a chain reaction.
Right. Yeah.
And I can't get them to see that. Okay, what you're saying is what made New York what it is.
Yeah.
And that insults them because no, I'm conservative. I don't like what New York is. Well, I know, but it's the small things that lead to the bigger things.
Right. Yeah. It all adds up.
It all adds up.
It all adds up. Well, so I guess we're in agreement on this that socialism / communism is not the way to go. And I mean, I see that there's sometimes holes in capitalism, which is why our government is as corrupt as it is, because capitalism has infiltrated the government that's supposed to look out for us, and so now they're looking out for themselves. There's too many. You got too many lobbyists, and you got too many.
And see, that's the whole. It's not that capitalism has gotten into government. We've allowed government too much control in our resource markets.
Yeah,
basically. But what you kind of hit the nail on the head with what you just said. Capitalism, i.e., a free market, is people looking after their own self-interest. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying they're selfish, but I allow you to use your resources the way you want to. So you're going to get the best use out of your resources because you want to maximize your, we call it utility. It means satisfaction. Well, if everybody's doing that and private property law is being upheld and contract laws being upheld, it makes everyone better off. Mm-hmm. That is where the Wealth of Nations, John Adams, come from. When he said the free hand, the invisible hand in the free market is what makes it run because everybody gets to look after their own self-interest. Mm-hmm. The problem is what you just said. In government, those guys look after their own self-interest too.
But that's not why they're elected.
Exactly. They're supposed to look after our interests.
Right.
But they're not. They're looking after their own self-interest, and there's no checks and balances. That video I told you about earlier about Carol Roth, she goes into that, about risk and reward. And when you have people in Washington who have no risk in the game, because if they may not get voted back in by passing something, but it's good for them, they get rewarded for what they did, i.e. lobbyists and everything else. But the risk to them is small. Whereas an entrepreneur like yourself, when you invest something, you're risking it all, and you could lose it.
Yeah.
But you're trying to get back a reward.
Right.
And so there's some pain there. You got flesh in the game, basically.
Yeah.
Where politicians don't.
Right.
And so once you get it out of whack, you get what you get.
Yeah. I don't know how you restore those checks and balances because I feel like we're too far gone now.
Yeah. That's probably another one we need to get into sometime. How do we fix this? Is it fixable?
The short answer to me would be no. It's impossible at this point. We're too far gone. We're on the Roman Empire route at this point.
Yeah, and I don't know even stuff Trump's doing. I don't know if it's going to be enough. And I'm scared that by the time through in 4 years, the pendulum's going to swing back so hard the other way that we will be a communist nation.
Yeah.
At the end of it.
I will say I am surprised his tariffs haven't hurt worse. They're actually doing good. I didn't think leaving them in place would be, but so far they seem okay.
Yeah.
But I guess it's because he really evened them out. He didn't really offset it with anything crazy that other countries weren't already doing to us. And I think maybe that's why it evens out. We instead of like going overboard.
Free trade means free trade, and it hasn't been free trade since the 40s.
Right.
And for a lot of countries before that.
Yeah. So I guess evening it out wasn't as bad as if he'd have just gone the other way and just made it ridiculous on everybody. Yeah. So I guess that's a win.
Even Bill Maher
I saw that.
It.
I saw that. Yeah, which is amazing when because that's one thing I do respect about him. He always will call it out, even though most of the stuff he says, I'm like, oh, Bill.
I know, yeah.
But
really,
every now and then he'll say something,
I
I'm like,
think
oh,
he's
it
had a
is
little
reasonable.
Too much recreational
Marijuana use.
junk out there, yeah.
Yeah, it happens. All right, well, we'll move on to, we'll wrap this one up. We will basically say that socialism/communism is not the route to go, and we'll move on to...
And if you still believe it is, you need to do some more research.
Yes, and I guess we'll move on to...
euthanasia.
Yeah,
Yeah,
doctor-induced
This
murder.
is going to be good.
Yeah, this is going to be a good one.
Come back.
All right.
Mortgage payment, insurance payments, credit card payments, they can be very overwhelming. Are you ready to take the time to get things under control? Then reach out to me at Clark Financial Coaching to see if we can get you started with a budget and then a vision for the future. Write me at coachwesc@gmail.com. That's coachwesc@gmail.com.
Are you looking to buy a home in North or South Carolina? You need to reach out to Wave Beach Realty today. We are a family-owned company with over 10 years of experience in North and South Carolina and operate along the Grand Strand. Give us a call today at 843-957-3872. That's 843-957-3872. Thanks for listening to the Dollars and Cents Podcast with Jonathan the Conspiracy Theorist and Wes the Economist. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and X at DollarsCentsGS and on Facebook at Dollars and Cents.